Would you like to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Speakeasy and master connector Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on this planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another truly amazing, awesome episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. 1,000-some-odd episodes. If you're a loyal listener here, you already know this. But you do not know my guest today, because I'm going to introduce you to her right now. Because today we have a trauma-informed life strategist on a mission to empower women to overcome self-sabotage and trauma, providing them with the tools to break free from procrastination, people-pleasing, and overwhelm. It's amazing that these things became bad things in our lives, but they are. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Thrive Loud, your best moment is now, as I bring you Elyssa Smith. Elyssa, welcome to Thrive Loud.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. I'm very excited to speak with you.
Excited to have you here. She's coming to us from farm country somewhere in Indiana. Here we are recording this in mid to late August, whatever you want to call it. You're listening to this in September. But as we have a nice time here in the summer, Alyssa's got a pretty cool story and is focused on some things, as I mentioned here in the opening, that are really interesting problems. So I want to do a little rewind here. I don't want to go all the way back. I want to kind of understand, Elyssa, how this became the focus of what you do.
I am a committed, lifelong people pleaser. So it was... I am a committed, lifelong people pleaser and perfectionist. So for me, I didn't think any of that was a problem until it really, I just thought, I'm just a straight A student and I want that A plus if it's available. And that's a good quality, right? We want to have hard workers that we surround ourselves with. And you get rewarded for that in school. You get rewarded for that in your job. And then a bunch of trauma hit me in my late 20s. And I did not recognize it as that. But when that happened, everything got worse. And I felt like my life, like the way that I would think, my ability to perform in my business, it all started grinding to a halt because of these self-sabotage behaviors. I did not at the time realize the connection between trauma and self-sabotage, perfectionism, people-pleasing, all that stuff. And so I started to study it, and then I got certified in trauma work as a coach and started to rewire my own brain according to what I was learning. And now I get to pass those shortcuts on to everybody out there who is frustrated that they keep knowing what to do and not actually doing it. Yeah, hi, welcome to the club. That's what we're here to do.
Okay. And by the way, we've had a lot of people talking about the problems of people pleasing. Most notably, I'm going to give Nick Pollard a shout out, who is literally known in social media as the people displeaser. But I'm linking these all together here: procrastination, people pleasing, and overwhelm. So I could see where procrastination and overwhelm connect. I get that. Like maybe we're not doing something because it might be too much, or I'm just waiting for the last minute to deal with it, or that leads to the result of overwhelm. Help me understand the connection on all three here. How are they related in these particular pieces? And maybe your own trauma might be able to explain that to us if you want to go into a little more detail about that, Elyssa.
Yes. So here is the root of all of this. There is a part of the survival brain. There's a part of the brain that I call the survival brain. It's called the amygdala. I just call it the survival brain for the ease of talking about it. And that little part of the brain has one job, and it's to protect you from any threats. It's there to keep you alive, which is a good thing, right? I mean, we all need that. And things like people-pleasing, perfectionism, procrastination did that for us as coping mechanisms for things like stress, things like trauma. But when the brain feels unsafe, it will kick your sabotage into high gear. So if you learned going through any kind of trauma that you're aware of, or you might not be aware of your trauma, this is where I specialize, is in the hidden types of trauma that most people have experienced but aren't aware of. When your brain feels unsafe from those things, it will create programs that run that say, okay, when we feel unsafe, we have to go into this coping mode. And that means that your right brain takes over. And here's the catch: your left brain, which is all of your executive functions, takes a break in that moment. You actually can't be as productive as possible if you are in fight, flight, or freeze mode. And that's what happens when the brain perceives that you're unsafe, which can be caused by trauma. It can cause several different types of trauma. Like I said, some of them are hidden. And when that happens, you're just kind of on autopilot in your right brain, in survival mode, and you can't attain those higher goals.
Okay. I totally agree with these thoughts, and I recognize the connection now. Thank you. It's funny because I've always been a people pleaser in certain ways, but I think I also like to please myself too. So I'm one of those people that I like to please. So let's drill down on each one of these, and the trauma. And actually, I want to rewind. I want to know: are you willing to share what your own personal trauma, what that you went through in your late 20s was? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share just kind of at a high level, just
Sure.
because it might be relatable to somebody that's listening. So, if you're a people pleaser and you go through the first few decades of your life, just every time somebody else has a need and your need is to like make them happy and keep them happy, when you choose someone else's happiness over listening to yourself, then you detach a little bit from being connected with your true self. When your true self gets pushed down by enough of those decisions, it will lead you all kinds of places. It's especially potentially into relationships where the other people in your relationship will treat you the same way. They will push your needs down. So I found myself in a really unhealthy, toxic relationship. I went through birth trauma with my son that we both made it through, thank God. But it was very dicey. And I was also diagnosed with sort of general depression in my 20s. Turns out that also is something that your brain will do as a last resort when it's in survival mode. So I had all of these compounded traumas happening for me. And it's actually something I'm grateful for now, because I always say I wouldn't choose that. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But I wouldn't change it, because I think for me, that was the fire I had to walk through to find this other version of myself. And she's no longer always in survival mode. And I just like decide to do something and go do it now. I don't have to like do the dance of like, okay, how much time do I have left? Okay, like, I have 3 days left before the deadline. I'll wait until the night before. I don't have to do any of that. I don't run on adrenaline anymore that way. It's delightful. So it's really amazing not to have to operate that way anymore.
So overcoming that issue yourself is one thing. Making a decision to help other people overcome those decisions is another. And I guess in my own interesting way, is that people pleasing by helping those people with the problem. But we'll get to that point later. Tell me when you made the decision that you said, you know what? I am very glad that I've overcome this. Now I want to show others how I've done this. What was that? When did that realization happen for you?
I I avoided it like the plague for a while. I actually had therapist colleagues, like I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach, but I had therapist colleagues who were like, "Hey, you went through something where you really learned really good boundaries. You have learned how to like not be in survival mode and kind of self-defeat everything you attempt. Can you create a class? Could you take on clients?" And I was like, "Nope." Nope, it's too hard. I don't want to be in the trauma field. Like this is too hard. It's really heavy stuff. But it just kept knocking at my door. And so I kind of just like took it to prayer, and I was just kind of thinking like, okay, if I were to do this in a sustainable way, if I were to do this in a way where I'm not like bleeding out at the same time my clients are bleeding out, what does that look like? And so it turns out there's just this really simple brain rewiring process that I can take my clients through in group or individual format, and it really just works. And so that knowing that because I remember my darkest moment, I just remember feeling like I was in a dark tunnel, but that there was no light at the end in my very worst moment. And I, at that moment, knew that I had a choice because I had a little baby at the time, and he's almost 10 years old now, which seems unbelievable. But in that moment, I knew it wasn't an option to quit at life or whatever. And so I wrote down in my journal, if I do find a way out of this, I'm going to record the map so that I can help every single woman coming after me and make it easier for her. It was part of my own healing process to just commit that if I find the answers, I'm not going to let anyone wait as long as I did to find them. And that has been the history since then.
Now I'm going to hit you on the question that is something that maybe you have the answer to, and I'm not sure. Why is it women that seem to fall into this trap, maybe more so than men? Although I will tell you, there isn't a man who's been married for a long period of time that doesn't understand that people pleasing is part of the contract you sign when you were married. You must make the wife happy. That's a whole other podcast. We'll do that another day. But why is it that women are the ones that have to overcome it more so than men? It seems to be prevalent. This has been discussed before.
So it's not necessarily, but women are the ones that I have found. This is just my experience. I have found that women are more willing to self-assess and go after the self-development and improvement than men, potentially not because of any fault in the men necessarily, but because our society says women's roles have to do with nurturing and I'll use a different term because people pleasing is something, and then there's taking care of people, that's something else. But caretaking is primarily a woman's role still in our society. And I actually have no problem with gender roles. Like I believe that I am a great nurturer, and I believe that I have a sixth sense that lets me know, okay, this person's feeling this, like I'm an empath. But culturally speaking, I think it's more acceptable for women to be looking at these patterns than it is for men. And I think culturally speaking, we've been told a lot more than men. We get a lot of messages as women that our job is to be nice. Our job is to be pleasing. And so when we lose our identity to that is when the problem happens.
Okay. Interestingly, by the way, I kept thinking about procrastination because I know some people that don't consider procrastination. They actually procrastination is eventually pushing something off is what we call procrastination. But to me, this sounds really weird. Procrastination is pushing something off until the very last minute when you need to do it. And sometimes you could actually do well with it. But I agree with you. I think by the true definition is it's trying to not do something because of being afraid of change, or being afraid of being afraid to fail. All the common fears that we all have, which all load up to it. And it's very interesting because to me, it's always about an agenda item, tasky thing. I'm always going to do it, as opposed to never doing it. And I think that is the biggest mindset thing. Like everything's on my list of things to do. It's just a matter of that one I'm pushing off to the end. Like my boss over here keeps asking me to do my expenses for the last month, and I'm a little behind, and I keep pushing it off. But I do recognize, though, that I will eventually have to do it. It is more that I don't really want to do it. And that's what I want to hit you on. Some people like the way they feel when they're pleasing, and some people like the way they feel if they're doing something last minute, and some people actually, believe it or not, can do well when they're overwhelmed and stuff like that. I do recognize that there is a way better joy when you don't have those feelings. For those people who are currently going through all of those and are interested in learning from you, the dichotomy, the difference, if you would, Elyssa, between, you can get it done and all this stuff, but how much better it is when it isn't that way. Could you verbalize what that is for our listeners?
Absolutely. And actually, this is the heart of my TEDx talk. This is exactly what I tackled, because high achievers almost wear it on their sleeve when they're a perfectionist, or they just say like, I'm a procrastinator. And that's sort of a badge of honor. It's like, I work best under pressure. And so if somebody listening today is like, I work best under pressure, it doesn't feel good at the time, but I always do a great job. And it's because I have so much pressure that I'm working under. Here's something that I would love to submit to you. If you do that well when you're in survival mode, and your executive functions are limited because your survival brain has taken over your executive higher level decision thinking brain, rational brain, logical brain has taken a back seat for the moment. What might happen? What kind of performance could you give if you didn't wait until the last second and depend on your adrenaline to get you through? What if you had access to every single one of your executive functions and you could actually do your real best? Because what you're seeing, my best work is under pressure. What you're seeing is not your best work. What you're seeing is your best work in survival mode. But your best work can actually be accessed when you're not in survival mode at all.
Love it. Well played. Listeners need to know I did watch the TEDx talk right before she went on, so I kind of knew this was where it was going. That was called the softball question for me, but for the listeners,
the leading question.
Exactly. Elyssa, I love asking guests on the program this question. Kudos to you. You've overcome your own personal trauma. You've turned it into a business and a practice and a message, which is why you're here on Thrive Loud, which is why you're thriving each and every day. Yeah, we all have those days when we're a little off our game and we're not quite kicking on all cylinders. Elyssa Smith, when you have trouble thriving, what practice do you seek, or which individual do you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Oh, I never have trouble thriving. Are you kidding me? Never a bad day. Oh, man. No, it's actually really wonderful because when you know enough about the survival brain and you can recognize it, like almost like you take a step back and you can observe it happening, there's actually a really easy way to hack this. I don't want to say easy, but it's simple. So I call it my 3S framework. And so the first S is safety. So whatever it is that is dragging you down, whatever that sort of, I like to call them triggers because it's something maybe that has, come out of left field and it's just keeping you down. But whatever it is, even if you're just irritated at someone that you're working with or something and you need to go take a break, like run to the bathroom for a minute and just take a deep breath. Take 3 deep breaths and see if you can get yourself out of the trigger mode. Your brain will receive those 3 slow, deep breaths as a message that says we're not being chased by a wild animal because it can't tell. It thinks automatically when you're stressed that you're being chased by something and you're going to be eaten shortly. So when you tell it, no, we're breathing slow, we're taking these 3 deep breaths, you actually make your brain feel safe. It's like talking to your brain in its language. And then the second S is self-nurturing. And all I mean by that is to do something for your 5 senses. So whether you just make a cup of your favorite hot tea or hot coffee, you smell it, you taste it, you've got several of your senses there that you're nurturing. You can really just do anything small for any of your 5 senses, and your body will also take that as a message that you're safe. So you start to feel a little better. So you're breathing, you're doing the nice things for your body. The third thing is safe support. So I recommend that everybody has at least 1 or 2 green light people is what I call them. And they're people who never, ever judge you, people who never invalidate your feelings. They give you space to talk. And if you can reach out to one of those people, you're sending another message to your amygdala that says, we are not separate from the herd. Because if we're separate from the herd, then we're actually in danger of being picked off by a predator. So if you send those 3 messages, the 3 S's to your brain, and that's what I do like literally everything I own is like nurturing my senses, right? Like I have purple sparkly everything around me all the time. And I've always got my cup of tea. I've got I have a little pot on my desk my tea kettle. So make it as easy as possible to send those messages to your brain and you'll get out of survival mode every time.
Love it. Let's do the admin part of the show because we're going to have a fun version of Fun Street here on Thrive Loud. Share with the listeners.
I love Fun Street.
Everybody does. Everyone loves Fun Street. Maybe we should rename the show. 1,000+ episodes. Maybe we'll just call it Fun Street. Anyway,
there you go.
Or the
Why
best
not?
I think we need a best of Fun Street montage as we say this. But let's get one of these to be one of those. So Elyssa, share with the listeners all the places people can find you, websites, URLs, social handles, and then we're gonna get in the car, head on over to Fun Street, and start checking things out.
Sounds great. I would love for anyone who's listening to follow me on Instagram, Elyssa C. Smith, over on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, Elyssa Smith. Facebook, you can find me. I also have a group called the Stress Less Lounge for any ladies who want to join me on Facebook. That's my free community. And ElyssaSmith.com if you have any other questions about me.
Well, that was easy. So quick, so simple. Everyone knows it. We're going to put it all in the show notes. You'll see it on the landing page of the episode. You'll see it on the social handles, wherever you listen to it. But we are ready to go down Fun Street here. I know she's been ready. We're in the car. We're driving down. We're actually getting out of the car because this is going to be the Speakeasy Pub Crawl. We're going to take a shot of gumption and we're going to hit all these fun things that matter to you. Here we go. I would like you to share with the listeners if there is a movie, an all-time favorite movie of yours, that if it happens to be on like television or cable or streaming somewhere, you're immediately sucked in, or it's one that has always resonated with you.
I feel like I'm cheating because I'm not picking just one, but I am secretly obsessed with the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh
If
my
there's
God.
playing at any time of any day, every year I watch through the entire series in correct chronological order, by the way, because there was a snafu in the
In the
franchise where
timeline,
something.
yes.
Yes, the timeline was off. But yeah, man. And I live for when they bring the dead characters back. I'm like, this is the most unrealistic, best. Like, I just, watching handsome Rob and Vin Diesel go toe to toe on top of a building with a helicopter, and I don't know why. I just love it.
I've seen. Have I seen all of them? I've seen all 10. I know that 11 is coming because they left you on the end of the other one to let you know that
They left
coming.
you. Yes.
They literally brought back Wonder Woman. So for those who watch the show, they understand what I'm talking about.
I know.
Yeah. So it seems that you might be blown up in a car, but you'll live. You might actually fall out of a high flying, largest plane that ever lived, and you live. And by the way, even if you really die in real life, they superimpose the picture of you and your brother to
They
get you on
do.
the scene, which is absolutely amazing. And still to this day, Paul Walker, it breaks my heart because that's just such
Tragedy. I mean, I just cried through that the one where he passed. Oh gosh, horrifying.
We're going to do a side note. One of the original guests of Thrive Loud, who is not listed as one of the writers, when Paul Walker died, they flew him in. His name is Mark Bombeck. He's a big guy in Hollywood, executive producer. He helped with all of the Planet of the Apes movies. We had him as a guest on the show, and he is known as like the closer to help with certain situations. And they brought him in when Paul Walker died to help formulate the ending of the movie, which is obviously one of the most. By the way, 7, I believe, 5 might be the most biggest box office hit, but 7 was maybe even more than that because of the uniqueness of that situation. But I love those movies. They're awesome. They're so much fun.
It was an amazing tribute. Yeah, it was an amazing send off.
Are you like a big car racer too? Is that like one of those things? Like we have to wait up in the middle of the night. Listen, 2 o'clock racing going on in Indiana, like street racing.
I rent fast cars for my birthday. That's my gift to myself.
Nice.
Before I was pregnant with my son, I can't do it now. Maybe when he's an adult, but before I was pregnant with my son, before I found out I was pregnant, I was actually signing up for a stunt car racing class, like stunt car driving class. Very different than my normal day-to-day life. It kind of surprises people when I say that, but I'm obsessed. What can I say?
So we're going to hit all the stops in the pub crawl here. We're going to do the speed round here. First answers that come to your mind. These are things obviously to lift you up, motivate you, make you thrive. Here we go. Of late, a song that you've loved to listen to, or one that right now might be your jam.
I Am by Young Baby Tate.
Oh, awesome. I love that song.
I am healthy. I am wealthy.
Favorite food that's not a dessert?
Gosh, that's a great question. I am eating really clean right now. And I think my favorite thing right now is I had branzino for the first time recently. And that was phenomenal. Yes.
You Midwesterners need to get to the coastlines a little more often.
We need to get, there is not, man, seafood for us is like
it's tough.
We're talking Red Lobster in Muncie, Indiana. We're talking Red Lobster. Okay.
All the shrimp you can eat. A favorite dessert?
My sister's homemade ice cream sandwiches.
Ooh, is it like a vanilla or a chocolate ice cream?
Yes. She takes vanilla ice cream, vanilla custard, and she mixes Heath Bar in and then makes the chocolate chip cookies from scratch.
So basically, she takes the DQ shiver, puts them in the middle of an ice cream cone and ice cream sandwich, and puts it with her own cookies and chocolate chips. Oh, that sounds damn good.
It's so good. She's such a good cook.
We're hanging out at her sister's house soon.
Yep, everybody come over. She lives on a farm. There's plenty of room. Tents outside.
I like it. An activity you wish you did more of?
Swing dancing. I love to dance, and it takes so much planning for me to actually find swing dance events that I can get to, but I love it so much.
Awesome. An activity you wish you did less of?
Worry.
A new activity to you that you've recently tried that you like so much you want to tell all our listeners to go try it.
Oh, it has to be the right time for you. But last week I was speaking at a conference, and one of the resorts we were in had a cold plunge tub.
Oh, yeah.
And I have heard of this, and it terrified me because I actually have like a syndrome where I'm very sensitive to cold. But for some reason this day, I was actually in Phoenix. So it's like hotter than the face of the sun in this time of year. And so I was just like, I'm just going to see. If I hate it, I won't do it. And I actually did it, and I felt amazing afterward. So that was scary for me, but also very empowering. And I recommend it if it doesn't sound like death to you.
I've done it a bunch of times, side note, and it is great. I don't know if I could do it regularly.
I will not be.
But I will tell you, after a very hot activity of doing something, I can go straight into a shower and take a completely cold shower with no hot water, whatever. But obviously, it doesn't compare to that of an ice bucket.
Sure.
So go you.
Yeah,
all
thanks.
right. We covered all of those, and now I'll just simply ask if I could snap my fingers and Elyssa Smith could be anywhere in the world. Where is she?
Tuscany. My son and I have a bucket list item to go to Tuscany, and I would love to go there. It's actually in the works for the next year and a half or so.
We'll provide you with some hints together. Italy, we ranked it. I think we had like islands and Bora Bora, and Italy, though, it seems to always get to the top of the list when it comes to travel.
Good.
Tuscany is amazing. Elyssa Smith. Everybody go check her out. She is the trauma-informed life strategist. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud. Great to have you here. Everybody, check out all the show notes, all the things you need to learn. Hey, overcoming procrastination, people-pleasing, and overwhelm. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.
To all the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep moving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
Hey, Mickey. Hey, Mickey.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.